This is Jerome Corsi, and today it is Friday. It's October 4th, 2024. Please check out God's Five Stones. We've posted now that the Delaware, one of the battlegrounds, Wisconsin, one of the battleground states in Wisconsin, has an algorithm in it. And so this is the first of the battleground states. And if you just go to God's Five Stones, Gods, there's no apostrophe, you spell out five, Five, and stones is plural, Stones, gods5stones.com. That's our 501c3, where we're posting a lot of the information on, that you can see it right there on the algorithms. If you scroll down there just a little bit, Chris, you'll see the Wisconsin, which we now are reporting has an algorithm in its database, in the state voter registration database. These algorithms create a pseudo cryptographic artifact in the ID numbering sequence so that the voter numbers are not in any order of registration. And that permits you to create non-existent voters who look real and can actually get a legitimate state ID to vote. This sets up, again, an enormous number of clones. And you find in Wisconsin, the number of cloned voters. Cloned voters are voters with multiple registrations. So you have 2, 3, 4 registrations. And the number of registrations that you find in a state like Wisconsin, which is almost 874,000 fake registrations, of clone registrations that shouldn't be there. That rivals states like New York, which have over 1 million records that are clones that shouldn't be there. Now, if these databases are so corrupt that they have clone voters in these numbers, they got algorithms within the state database. This database cannot be used to certify an election. If you go to a casino and you find out the casino is playing with marked cards, that casino can't prove that you lost any hand. You can sue the casino and get your money back. Again, you can't use a database that's corrupt to certify an election. Okay, now what this is showing is the massive, and we're finding this all through the states, every state we're looking at. It seems like they all have algorithms in them. This is Andrew Paquette's work. Andrew Paquette is I think, a genius at this. He finds patterns in the database that are there. And the patterns have to do with how the voter ID numbers are assigned. See, as soon as you say that the voter ID is not a function of when the voter registered. Now you've just got a bunch of million records or several million records that have no natural order to them. And so you can use a numeric scheme to basically take them county by county and arrange them so that you can insert false records into the deck and they look like they're perfectly normal records. So you end up with voters who are registered with no registration date at all, or all the registration dates in a whole group are January 1. I mean, we've got, as we're looking at the databases of the states, what we're finding is that the databases of the states for voters are so corrupt that they're worthless. And they're filled with errors, incorrect registrations, people who don't exist, people who don't exist but are created as part of a scheme where someone has implanted a algorithm so that they know where the voters are in the database who don't exist so they can be voted. But yet if you look at these votes, just looking at them, they look normal. So you have to do the kinds of tests and kind of examinations that are being done by Andrew Paquette. And what we're finding is a disgrace. And yet, I think our voting rolls are this way because that's the way the politicians want them. And I think it's going to have consequences because when we are voting, and we find that these battleground states are having any of the signs that we know are the signs of cheating, which are that suddenly a candidate who's a Democrat who's not been doing very well, being beaten by the Republicans, starts to surge. They say, well, the voters woke up, and so the surge has started. No, the surge hasn't started. There's nobody at the polls voting for that candidate. The surge starts in the computers. And the computers are churning out votes because the criminals who planted these algorithms are now voting the false records that they put in the database. Then we've got crimes being committed. We've got people winning elections who shouldn't be winning elections. Now, in states like Ohio, there's also clone records. There's also voters who registration is imperfect, is not perfected. They should be thrown off of the rolls. You've got Cuyahoga County where there's been massive voter harvesting, just people going out and collecting names, getting signatures. Whether those people exist or not, who knows? But yet they come back into the county database, county board of elections, and they get registered in the county. They'll ultimately get a state legitimate voter ID, even if that person doesn't exist. And so you get a huge proportion of the voters in Cuyahoga County that have been recently added. Okay, which means the vote harvesting is massive. And when it's that massive, it's not going to be legitimate. Now, it's not just the main candidates like Donald Trump who are affected by this, but again, it's also the down ballot. So Sherwood Brown, who's running for Senate against a guy named Malone, this is again an election. If Sherwood Brown wins, a challenge ought to be made immediately, saying that it's suspect because the database has an algorithm in it. And you can't have a voter registration database being used that has corrupt data in it. It makes no sense at all, except in a system where we're so corrupt that we don't care that the elections are legitimate. These elections are going to be legitimate. The voter rolls in the states have to be legitimate. And if they're not, something needs to be done about it. We're going to be vigilant on this right up until the election. We're going to be revealing more states in which there's algorithms. We have 8 or 10 now that we've identified, and we're going to go try to get as many as we can find between now and the election date. And you can contribute to us on God's Five Stones. You can see how you can make a donation. And any funds we can get, we're going to put it's very top there. You can donate right there. If you click that, it takes you immediately to where you can donate on the website. And the donations, I think, are such that it keeps us going. Those red bars there, which says, donate here to God's Five Stones. If you click that, Chris, you'll see how it goes right there. Click that. And you'll see how that goes into being able to donate. It's very easy to do right on the website. If you donate today and click that, you'll be taken to where you can, in fact, make a donation in credit card donation. You can write a check. There's addresses there to write a check and send it in. We can get funds for this. We're going to be able to continue looking for algorithms in additional states. Okay, now the major news to me, there's a couple major news stories. One is that I think Israel is lining up for a massive attack now on Iran. I think it's going to be, a cataclysmic kind of attack. It's going to be an apocalyptic attack. Israel has moved in now to southern Lebanon with troops and has closed off the border with Syria. So Israel is, I think, moving now into both Syria and into Lebanon. I don't think Israel is going to stay there, but they are going to go in and try to inflict some massive strategic damage on the infrastructure of these terrorist organizations. And specifically, they're going after now Hezbollah. They went after Hamas in Gaza, and they're going after Hezbollah in Lebanon. When they go into Iran, they're going to be going after, the Israelis are going to be going after the Revolutionary Guard. And I think that when you see the determination of the Israelis, this is now being recognized as, I think, a existential crisis After the October 7th attack, I think the Israelis realized that the Jew hatred has not abated in the Middle East at all. That Hezbollah, Hamas, these organizations are determined to kill Jews. And that hasn't stopped. In fact, those flames have been stoked by the Democrats. And you can see why the Democrats, although they've suppressed it for the time being, the Democrats support Hamas. Obama he's been saying, when he went to Cairo, that he's experienced Islam on 3 continents. He didn't say he was Muslim. He wants to maintain he's Christian. But there's nothing Christian about Obama. We've got film clips of Obama mocking the Bible, which were suppressed. All the news about Obama has been managed by the CIA. Obama, I believe, is a CIA creation. What has been suppressed is that, for instance, we did find the birth certificate from which Obama's was copied. And Sheriff Arpaio proved that. Took 2 years. He proved it with forensic analysis. I found the birth certificate from which Obama's was lifted. Okay, and so if Obama doesn't have a birth certificate in Hawaii, his nativity story is a CIA legend. And I think the CIA was picking a number of blacks that, at one reason or another, drew their attention as possible candidates for president some 20 or 30 or 40 years later. And the CIA, I think, is that far-reaching in terms of its determination to destroy the United States of America and create this new world order. I'm promoting and talking to everybody about reading this book that Jim Marrs wrote. And there I am with the birth certificate book, which I brought out and again was completely mocked for and completely ridiculed for. Truth doesn't matter anymore. Truth is not what these people are reporting. So Chris showed a book from Jim Marrs. It's called The Fourth Reich. And what Jim was arguing, there's a book on abomination. That was the #1 bestseller. That was 2008. That was when the New York Times would cover it. When the New York Times, before they realized that the best way to deal with conservatives was to absolutely shadow ban us and ignore us, censor us by not covering it. There's Jim Marrs' book, The Rise of the Fourth Reich. And that book, I think, is an exceptionally good book. It's one that does describe in detail how the Fourth Reich grew and what the Fourth Reich, is essentially all the Nazis that we brought to the United States after World War II in Operation Paperclip. We brought in their scientists and we brought in a whole unit of the Gestapo to be part of the CIA. And the Dulles brothers were close to the Nazis. The Dulles brothers, I think, John Foster Dulles, who headed the State Department under Eisenhower, and Allen Dulles, who headed the CIA, and I attribute as one of the major reasons Kennedy was killed. Show my book, Who Really Killed Kennedy. That was my first book on Kennedy's assassination. And I name Allen Dulles as one of the main planners. Allen Dulles headed the CIA. Kennedy, my final analysis, which is the most recent book I've written on the Kennedy assassination, showing from the X-rays, the work done on the X-rays by Dr. David Mantik, that Kennedy was shot twice from the front. And you can see the bullet damage in the X-rays. It's clear. We've been lied to for 61 years by the CIA, and they're still lying to us, and now they're fixing our elections. I think these algorithms are CIA quality. I think the intelligence agencies have moved in and started to run the agencies. There's Allen Dulles on the left and John Foster Dulles on the right. They were both globalists. They were both early New World Order advocates, wanted to create a one world government that they would run, and thought that they could do things much better than we can. We, the people, were insignificant. And my anti-globalist manifesto. I'm seriously thinking about creating again a conservative book club. And we may do that starting in November after the election. We're going to revamp the Truth Central to be a very different website going into next year. Okay, I want to cover a few additional stories, but I'm expecting that Israel, when it attacks Iran, is going to do the following. They're going to take out the nuclear sites, which there are at least 2. There may be as many as 6. They're going to target the mullahs, and they're going to target the infrastructure of the Red Guard. So just like you saw when Israel went into Lebanon and got Hezbollah and killed Nasrallah, who was the head of Hezbollah, the friend of Ayatollah Khomeini, going back into the 70s. These are radical terrorists, and their purpose is to kill Jews and to eliminate Israel. Israel's not going to let that happen without a massive war. And we're in the beginning of World War III. This is how it starts. It starts with Israel having a apocalyptic attack. This is like a Armageddon attack, I think. What's going to be unleashed is going to be massive bombing, probably missiles launched. I doubt if Israel's going to send over aircraft. I think they're going to do it with missiles and drones. And you're going to see large parts of Tehran destroyed. This is coming. And Israel's just had it. When the Israelis get to this point, the never again mentality of resisting another Holocaust, another Hitler, another concentration camp, killing millions of Jews. The Jews are saying they've had enough, and they will massively now attack Iran. It's just coming in, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but I have no doubt it's going to happen. Okay, now also another huge story is this storm that hit, the Hurricane Helene, which caused billions of dollars in damage. The Biden-Harris administration, Kamala, is doing nothing. So FEMA is spending $640 million to help immigrants. They're giving them, free credit cards, and here's a cell phone, and here's medical care, and here's a house and place to live. But they're doing nothing for the victims of Hurricane Helene because it largely hit red states. It's okay with them that red states suffer. By the way, they've got the longshoreman strike postponed until January, and that will hit in January. And so the stock market is going to take a massive hit after the election. And I'm encouraging another program I'm going to introduce is going into gold and silver IRAs. We'll be starting to talk about that on Monday. But all of these efforts, I think, are seeing a heading and pointing towards an economic collapse. And when the economic collapse starts, it's going to cascade. Why? Because you're going to find that the amount of debt, the amount of credit card debt for individuals, the amount of corporate debt, the amount of government debt, the fact that we're spending, like wild at the federal level. We've gone to $35 trillion from $34 trillion at record time. And at the same time, I think we're abandoning our position as the world's reserve currency. We're down from like 80% of all transactions in international trade being done in dollars to something like 50%. And when the BRIC nations get together, which they're going to get together before the end of the year, they're likely to introduce a gold-backed currency, which will send the United States dollar into a shock. But FEMA is completely broke. So, you take a look at what FEMA is doing. So the Biden administration said that here's a $2.4 billion aid package to Ukraine last week. Well, Kamala said that the Hurricane Helene will get $750,000. Okay, so FEMA doesn't have enough money to make it through the hurricane season, yet it spent $640 million on illegal immigrants. So they're going to fund Ukraine and illegal immigrants, and all the hurricane victims can fend for themselves. This is, Buttigieg. These are the type of people that are running our government right now, and they're completely incompetent. Billions for Ukraine, millions on illegal immigrants coming into the country, pennies for Americans. That's the Biden-Harris budget priorities going into the election. Okay, yet we're saying, oh, well, Camilla's doing very well in the polls. It's nonsense. She can't get 20 people to come to an event. All the Democrats are doing is setting up the steal, where they can vote all these non-existing voters and in mail-in ballots that they get certified because these mail-in ballots have certifiable numbers. Okay, so you're finding that what's going on at the border is a CIA-run operation. I've been stressing this again. I've been stressing how much of our world is being architected by the intelligence agencies who control the news media. What you're seeing is not reality. It's the reality that the CIA wants you to see. You know, why were we told for 61 years that Lee Harvey Oswald killed Jack Kennedy when not a single shot that's seen in the x-rays of JFK's skull came from the 6th floor of Texas School Book Depository? There's 3 obvious shots that hit Jack Kennedy's head, and none of them came from that location. But yet Lee Harvey Oswald is the assassin. Why do buildings that weren't hit by the airplanes at 9/11 come down? Building number 7. Why we invade Iraq in 1991 because Saddam Hussein's got weapons of mass destruction. That's what Colin Powell told the world, the United Nations included. Well, we didn't find any weapons of mass destruction. Why did a vaccine that's supposed to prevent you from getting COVID not work? You know, so even Fauci repeatedly gets COVID. Lies, 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 and damn lies. And then we're supposed to believe all this stuff because the mainstream media parrots it in the echo chamber. This should be obvious to everybody right now. And I think we've got to insist that we have fair elections. And if we don't have fair elections, we've got to protest them. Immediately bring lawsuits. Immediately get in and file complaints with the secretaries of state in these different states, including on people who lose on the down ballot elections. It's not just the presidency that's being stolen. And these algorithms have been in the state since 2007. How many elections have been stolen because of the algorithms? How many people in Congress today, Democrats, cheated to get there? You know, if we've gotten into this corruption, which appears to be massive, starting with Biden and billions of dollars from Ukraine, why are we fighting in Ukraine? Does the CIA want the money laundering kept open? Is that good for the drug business, or is it good for the pedophile business? Or is it good for the, which business is the CIA promoting today? Which of these evil activities? Okay, if we continue on with these themes, what we're seeing is not only is the reprehensible nature of the government and FEMA, and I don't think FEMA is going to jump to action. So the EU is now slapping a 45% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles. And again, this is starting the economic war because Europe does not want China dumping all these cheaper electronic vehicles on Europe. And by the way, the Europeans are finding out, just like we do in America, that these electric vehicles don't work. They cause catastrophic fires when the batteries catch fire. If they don't have charging stations, they're dead in the water. We didn't build the promised charging stations. Okay, but the EU Commission is saying that they're going to impose these countervailing duties on imports of battery electric vehicles from China, and it has the necessary support of EU member states for the adoption of tariffs. Okay, so this again is the beginning of a trade war, and it's already Europe is facing extremely high energy costs because Russia's cut off the natural gas. So again, we're in a suicidal period of time when we're going to need massive amounts of new energy because of the AI demands. And what we're seeing is that government after government saying, well, we have to shut down nuclear. We can't have nuclear. And then we can't have hydrocarbon fuels. We can't burn coal. So we're going to do everything with wind and solar. It's not going to work. You're going to have junkyards full of wind and solar junk, that is obsolete, isn't going to be able to be fixed, doesn't work, and didn't work to begin with because the idea was stupid The technology was not proven to be scalable to the extent of being able to run a city, but lies, 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 and then damn lies. It's all we've been fed here for decades. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. And I think most people listening to this are tired of it. Okay, so if we continue to look at where we're headed economically, I want to emphasize that gold today is trading at $2,643.64, and silver's at $31.90. These are new highs. And if you had listened to me when we started this, when I started writing this book, and please, Chris, show the book, which is how a coming historic gold rush is going to be created by this global crash. The global crash is coming. And the toll-free number to get that book is 1-800-519-6268. 1-800-519-6268. And the book, I think, is one that you've got to read. We're going to be doing some updates. I talked with Dean Heskin yesterday at Swiss America. I think we're going to be producing a monograph or a white paper on what the BRICS nations are up to and how we're going to have a challenge with a gold-backed currency coming down the pike very soon. Okay, we continue this. A couple more stories. The postal workers agreed to end their strike, and they got a 62% wage hike. Well, thank you, Kamala Harris, for the administration. Of course, Kamala has, we've got all these economic plans. Well, they've had 4 years. What have they done? They've done nothing except to increase inflation, okay, which has been murderous for the middle class. So again, with the dock workers see that the postal unit, if you get the port workers ending the strike, they're going to get a 62% wage increase if they return to work. And the agreement would extend the prior contract, which expired at the end of the week, through January 15th, while two sides negotiate. And the breakthrough came after port employers offered a 62% increase in wages over 6 years. Okay, the White House privately and publicly pressed the large shipping lines and cargo terminal operators to accept this new offer to the union. Okay, so it's a massive increase. And again, it reflects inflation. But the average middle-class worker in the United States is not getting this kind of a pay increase. In fact, it's going to be, I think, a contraction of the economy that's going to be massive. So I'm foreseeing that the October surprise is going to be a massive war in the Middle East, plus escalation in Ukraine, possibly even a nuclear attack occurring from Russia should NATO actually fire these long-range missiles into Russia. But that's a potential that could go any day. And I think as we get closer to the election, it becomes clearer the Democrats can't win unless they cheat. We're going to be seeing massive, shocking developments that could include, first of all, a huge strike by Israel on Iran. That's, I think, almost certain. A possible nuclear attack by Russia in Europe. That's less certain. And I give it a lower probability, but it's certainly likely to happen. And number three is the beginning of an economic collapse, but you're going to see gold increasing in value. And I'm going to be encouraging people to take their IRAs out of the stock market now before you have a massive loss in value of your retirement savings. If you'd listened to me before, gold was at $1,900 an ounce, you would have already had a $700 increase per ounce in gold. And again, that's going to continue to happen. Gold is going to double in price for sure, and possibly with where it's headed, triple. Okay, but the EU is these electric vehicles, I think, worldwide don't work, and people have realized that they don't work. And so therefore, I think the whole idea about electric vehicles is dead. I don't think people want to buy them. I think they're sitting on lots. There's not enough. The whole charm and marketing and Greta and climate change, all of this lying nonsense is, again, um, going nowhere because these ideas don't work. Woke is broke. And what we've got produced here is the World Economic Forum is using this critical theory to destroy America, destroy our values, and in the process, getting ready to position through crisis after crisis the acceptance of a world government. But this whole thing is a mockery. How you get rid of the United Nations, the World Health Organization wanting to take over the world? Just quit funding it. Don't pay their bills in New York. The UN it'll dry up and blow away with the dust, with the wind, because it's a nothing. It's full of sound and fury, and it's nothing. If we didn't fund the UN and the World Health Organization, they'd both die. And so let's quit funding them, because they're not doing anything except creating a repressive, intolerant, one world government that will imprison all Americans and increase the censorship beyond what it already is. So this pact for the future, which of course China is backing, except China doesn't provide the money for the UN to run. We do. We're funding our own demise. This has got to stop. And what I see happening is such insanity at this point that the only solutions are to not participate in this. Take your kids out of the schools. The school system will collapse. Stop watching the major news. Don't buy any of these newspapers. Well, unsubscribe to the New York Times, to the Wall Street Journal. Unsubscribe to all these media, and they'll collapse. They can't survive without the revenue. And that's the one thing we've got to fight back with is they won't survive without the revenue. And the idea that we have all this inflation, and yet what are we going to do? The middle class is dying, so our tax revenue is going mostly to paying the interest on the debt, which leaves us in a position of having to deficit spend to meet the continuing obligations of the federal government as welfare, unemployment insurance, health care, Obamacare. All these payments increase and will continue to increase as we bring in more illegal immigrants. This situation is FUBAR. It's so messed up, it's beyond repair. And I think it's going to collapse. I'm expecting these bubbles will burst, and I'm trying to warn people about this, to try to get out of the stock market before it's too late. Take your gains now. If I'm wrong, you can go back into the stock market. It may have gone up a bit. You may have lost some of the gain you could have had, but you're preserving your capital by getting out now on the chance that I'm right. In the end, God always wins. It's another week ending. We're getting closer to the voting. Please follow us at gods5stones.com. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. But it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be nice. We're going to have a judgment of God. We've let this woke get out of control. Got a pope who wants to be LGBT. I mean, come on. That's not Catholic theology. Got Archbishop Vigano, who's been excommunicated because he believes in the Catholic liturgy and the Catholic theology as it was originally constructed, not this new age nonsense of LGBT and synods, and we've got to give a voice to the marginalized. And Pope Paul says these two homosexuals, isn't it nice they are in love with each other? So that's not God's idea of procreation. God didn't invent sex for LGBT. God invented sex for procreation, raising of children. In the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, I'm urging everybody to get down on our knees. Let's get down and repent. We've let this get this far. God will then hear our prayer and heal our land. It's going to take that. I wrote another book, No Greater Valor, about the Battle of Bastogne, and I did say that God intervenes. God will intervene again. But if God wins, it doesn't mean we all win. Certainly not the GOP that took the right to life platform a plank out of the platform, which we needed in the Republican platform and has been there for years. People like Phyllis Schlafly fought to get it there, and we've taken it out. We don't want to offend the LGBT. The end God wins, God will win here too. We've concluded another week. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi with thetruthcentral.com. We'll be back again on Monday, and we'll be advancing towards the election very quickly now. And things in the campaigns are going to pick up, and the world events are now going to get. This is when we get the October surprise. I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen next week or the week after. It will be right up against the election this year, and I think some shocking event's going to happen that will reframe everything, and the Democrats will want to reframe it so that we all vote for Kamala and for Wall, and I don't think anybody's going to vote for these people. The only way the Democrats can win is through cheating, and I think the Democrats know that. Let's make cheating so difficult. I'm saying two things. Everybody get out and vote in massive ways because it's too big to rig. That's going to overwhelm and vote in person. Make election day too big to rig. And secondly, let's continue to expose all the ways the Democrats cheat. That's what I'm doing in gods5stones.com. And I want to say make it too clear how they cheat, too absolutely clear that they cheat in the following ways with mail-in ballots. So it's so clear that they can't queer the election. Too clear to queer. Democrats seem to want to queer everything. We've got admirals wearing dresses. And we've got children wanting sex change operations. We've got tampons in male bathrooms for men, for men having babies. This insanity's got to stop. We've got to get back to reason and to God and to the principles that made America great, which are not intolerance, which are not censorship, which are not the CIA running the country so that we're living in a Truman Show. And I'm here to expose these things, and I'm here to urge you to open your eyes and see the truth. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Thank you for joining us, The Truth Central. Please share this. Get this to your friends. We'll be revising the show the next few weeks, but continuing. And we'll be back next Monday. We're podcasting every weekday, thetruthcentral.com. God bless.